Hello, everybody. To start off, I'm curious if any of you all know any black park rangers. If not, it's okay because you're looking at one. Technically, I was an intern, but close enough. And I'm going to tell you all the story of how I went to rural Kansas, decided to be a park ranger, and then suddenly dedicated my life to environmental activism. So I grew up in a suburb right outside of St. Louis, Missouri called Ferguson, Florissant. And that summer, I decided to go to college and go to California, as many Missourians kind of dream of. And I decided to declare a major in environmental science and policy, and I was so excited. I spent a lot of my childhood running around catching toads, and thankfully my mom didn't make me feel too weird about it. And when I learned about the environmental science program, I got so excited. But about 2 weeks before I went off to California to start my journey, I got a call from a friend asking if I knew a gentleman by the name of Michael Brown. And while I didn't know his name then, his name was implanted in my memory from that point forward, and a lot of American people's memories. And the Ferguson uprising started in my community. And I was there for about 2 weeks before going off to California to begin my program. And when I started my environmental science program, I was the only black student in my classroom. And while we were learning about things like the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act and all of these incredible environmental policies, I couldn't help but feel inside that what's the point of the Clean Air Act if people who look like me and black and indigenous and people of color all over the country didn't even have the right to breathe? And the more I dug into environmental justice data, I started to see really startling statistics. Like 70% of African Americans in this country live in communities that frequently violate federal air quality standards and things like the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act. So I couldn't celebrate, and I had a lot of hurt in my heart for my community of St. Louis and Ferguson, and I really spent a lot of time in nature and wanted to heal. So I decided, okay, I think I'll try to be a park ranger, and I really wanted to go to Yosemite or something like that, but I applied really late, and I was placed in the least visited national park in all of the National Park Service system. And I decided that following summer after Ferguson to head to Nicodemus, Kansas. If anyone in this room knows that, shout out to you, because I sure didn't. We had about 0 to 2 visitors a day, so I had a lot of free time. And I hung out with a lot of farmers, got on their combine, was riding around, and it was such a healing experience because Nicodemus, Kansas is such a special town. It's actually the first town west of the Mississippi that after slavery, freed African Americans went to create their own homes. They used their hands and any tools that they could find to dig into the soil and create dugouts. And eventually they created the first school, the first post office, and a thriving black community. And it was there I fully healed, or I thought I kind of did, from the events of Ferguson. And I felt so empowered learning about this story. And even though I was the only black student in my environmental program, it was then that I truly understood that the stories of my people are there. Black history is environmental history, and though many of our stories might be buried in the soil, they're there. We have the stories of people like George Washington Carver, who isn't just responsible for all of his peanut butter inventions. He also is the father of regenerative organic agriculture and a pioneer of CSA programs. We also have the stories of people like Betty Reed Soskin, a 100-year-old black park ranger. And I got really excited to start sharing those stories and started to think, what if I learned about people like Betty when I was younger? What if I learned about the true history and the true Black American environmental history when I was younger? Maybe that would have made me an environmentalist even younger. And what would a new generation look like if they saw themselves reflected in environmental movements and policy and stories. So I set out to do that, and I know we're running out of time, but I founded an organization called Intersectional Environmentalists that does just that, because we want everyone to know that they're included in the environmental movement, and we want to make sure that those stories are not buried in the soil, and that you all will know them, so you can know the names of people like Betty Reed Soskin, George Washington Carver, and Dr. Robert Bullard, the same way we know the names of people like John Muir. Thank you.